Hello, I'm Lauren. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can add a fine art texture to a light background using this conceptualized fine art portrait. So the first thing you need to do is download your textures and unzip. You can watch other tutorials or go on Google if you're not sure how to do this. I love adding textures to my Photoshop library. So in Photoshop, if you head to Window and you hit Libraries, your libraries will pop up as a panel. Libraries is where you can keep all your images and things to drag and drop. I like to pop this above my layers panel. If you can't see your layers panel in Photoshop, come up to Window and choose Layers. To add your texture overlays to the library, you simply open up your unzipped file. You hit Create a New Library in Photoshop. These are the Victoriana textures, available on our Etsy store. I'll put the link in the YouTube description. So you create a new library, you give it the name, then you simply highlight the textures and the files, you drag and drop them into your library. And this means whenever you open up Photoshop, you can literally drag and drop these over your image. So I'm just going to have a little look through and decide which one I'd like to add. Now when you add textures to a light background image, your blend mode and editing needs to be a little bit different. So I'm just adding this one in. And you can see that's covering our whole image. It's come above our background layer as a new solid layer. So I'm going to come up onto the blend mode where it says normal. This is where you choose how this layer interacts with the layer beneath it, and you can scroll through these. You can see we're starting to see our picture coming through. Normally for texture overlays I'd recommend overlay blend mode or soft light. For this one I'm going to choose multiply. This is going to darken the blend mode so it shows on a light background, but you can see this is super heavy. So on our adjustment panel I'm going to click this and hit levels. If I adjust these levels, this is the histogram, if I adjust this, it's going to adjust the whole image. So I'm going to make sure levels layer is positioned above our texture layer. Photoshop works in layers. Right click, all the way down, create a clipping mask. And this means, you see the little arrow, that this will only affect the texture layer. So I can go up and down, it's only affecting the texture layer. I'm just going to bring the middle slider up a little bit. You can bring the blacks down a touch if you wanted to, but I'm just going to play with this. How this works with your image is going to be individualized, so do have a play. Now I want to select our subject. I want to mask this off the texture. So I'm going to click on the texture layer and add a layer mask. Down here on your adjustment panels, it's like a rectangle with a circle in. A layer mask is like a lotto scratch card. White means show. If I invert this to black, black means hide. Click on the background layer. I'm using Photoshop Creative Cloud, so I can come up to Select, Subject. This normally does a great job of selecting your subject. You can refine the selection further if you need to. Now I've got this selection made, the marching ants around my subject. I can click on the mask of the texture layer, hold down Control on a PC or Command on a Mac, then hit I to invert, Control or Command D to deselect, and we've got a cutout of our subject. And what I like to do as well is play around a little more. So I'm going to add a hue and saturation mask clipped into the texture layer, and I'm just going to take the saturation down a little. If at any point you want to, you don't just have to all black or all white for these, you can grab a brush, set to black to hide or white to show, and I'm just going to brush that hue and saturation off the texture a little bit in areas, just because I want a little bit of colour coming through. Just not too much. I think for this particular image, this is not exactly what you have to do. I just think for this particular image. I also want to add a shadow behind our subjects so they don't look quite so cut out. So again, on our texture layer, I'm going to add an adjustment of levels again. And what I want to do, make sure it's clipped in, is bring the middle slider down to the right, and you can see this is darkening the background. The bottom right slider in the white zone, I'm just going to take the whites out, so this is going to darken all over, like a uniform darken. You can see that's darkening the background. Control or Command I to completely invert this, because we don't want it affecting the whole image. And here's a shadow trick I'm going to show you. Right click on your brush, make sure your brush is selected, soft round, and here where you have this circle, if you squeeze this in, you can see your brush has become an oval shape. I'm going to angle this up in the direction of the shadows, hit enter. You can use square bracket keys to make your brush smaller or larger. I'm just going to change the angle a bit. I'm going to choose a white brush, and you can see now I can paint a little bit of shadow on the wall behind our subject, so it looks like they're kind of leaning against this wall. I'm just brushing on some of that hue and saturation layer we added in for transparency. And you can add, if you want to go back to a normal soft brush on this dark shadow layer, I'm just going to add a little bit more shading in, just so we're bringing the attention in to our subject. And there we go. That's how you can add a darker texture to a light background in Photoshop. Recap, we drop the texture in, change the blend mode to multiply. We added a levels layer in, just to lift and lighten this texture up a little bit. We added hue and saturation to desaturate certain areas. And then we added a levels layer and painted in some shading and shadows. To make the selection, we added a layer mask, cut out our subject, and made that black. One cool thing you can do with the layer mask as well, so my brush looks really big because of my screen recording software. If you want to make the edges a little bit softer, you can slowly, let me change my flow, 100% opacity, around 25% flow. You can just brush this texture around the edges of your subject. So it looks like the subject is kind of in the background a little bit. You can change your brush hardness as needed in Photoshop. Just to really mask that in. And that's how I like to use textures in Photoshop, to enhance a fine art background. We could even paint a little over our subject. Look, you can see the cracks coming on. It makes it even cooler in my opinion. There's lots of things you can do with textures, layering them up and changing the blend mode. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Do give us a follow and a subscribe if you found it helpful, because it helps our small independent channel. I hope this is helpful. I'm Lauren. Thanks for watching.